So let's get started making this block. To make this block, you will need 2 strips that are 14 inches long. And this quilt block is great if your 2.5-inch scrap strips are in longer pieces. If they're in shorter pieces, this wouldn't work so well, but I happen to have quite a few longer pieces. So I picked 1 dark and 1 light. The dark and the light together will make this block really pop like it's supposed to. Now I'm going to put them on top of each other, right sides together, and I'm going to cut them. They started off as 14 inches, and I'm going to cut them into 2 pieces. One will be 6.5 inches, and the other will be 7.5 inches. So there's my 6.5 inches, my 7.5 inches. I'm going to take to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down both sides of this block. All right, so I've got a 1/4 inch seam down each side of this block. And now I'm going to take my strip tube ruler. I have a strip tube ruler and a strip tube junior, but you can also use a square ruler for this. But let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find my 2.5 inch line on here, and I am going to cut a triangle from this. I'm going to put my 2.5 inch line on my seam. Make sure it's on the seam, and I'm just going to cut both sides of this like so. And that is going to give me a 2.5 inch half a square triangle. I'm going to flip it over and again put my 2.5 inch line on the seam and line up this side with the cut side that's already been cut, and cut one more time, and now I have 2. Now I'm going to show you how to use a square ruler if you have this. It's got a 45-degree angle right here on the edge. I'm going to put my 2.5 inch lines right on that seam, just like this, and then make my cut. And we have to cut this little bit off here, like that. And now I've got 3 half square triangles. I'm going to press them open, and I'm going to press my seam to the dark side, and then I'm going to just use my scissors and cut off these little dog ears. All right, got my little half square triangles, cutting off my little dog ears, just like that. Now I'm going to sew these 3 together, and they have to be sewn together in the right orientation. So when I look at these, I'm making sure that the dark is on my left-hand side, and it starts from the upper left to the lower right on all 3 of these. And I'm just going to sew all of these together just like this. So I'll have a little column of 3 half square triangles. The orientation is very important, so you will have to check to make sure you have the orientation correct every time. So let me get sewing these together for you. So there's my little column of 3 half square triangles. Now I'm going to take the remaining 6.5 inches of my strip, and I'm going to sew 1 to the side that's got the dark. I'm going to sew my other one to the side that's got the light. Very easy. I'm just going to sew both of these on, and that will be our block. So let me show you what it looks like once I've got them sewn on. All right, so there we go. That is our block square right there. Now, when we put these together with other blocks, we just line everything up like this. I'm going to put my darks together like so, and then I will line them up just like this. And then I'll put my lights together like this, and it will create this really cool optical illusion that I think you can probably start to see here with the lights and the darks in this zigzag pattern, and I think it looks pretty cool. Look at that. So you can have it go across this way. So for example, if I turned them all to the side like this, or you can have it go up and down, which is what I am going to do. And so let me get this all up on my design wall and let's see how it looks. So here's that optical illusion I was talking about. This is what it looks like when it's up on the design wall. I think it looks pretty awesome. Now I also think you could do this with jelly rolls. If you've got a jelly roll with half light and half dark, since you're starting with 14-inch strips and every jelly roll is about a 42-inch length, that makes sense that you could get 3 14-inch strips out of each jelly roll. However, that doesn't account for the selvage usually. So I'm not sure if you could really get 14 inches out of 3 14-inch cuts out of a jelly roll strip. But I might measure a jelly roll just to see if I can do that. But that also would be a great option. Now, of course, you can make this as big as you want by just adding more squares. So depending on how many scraps you have, I think this is a great quilt to use up your scraps.